Good evening. I'm Alan Price, Director of the John F. Kennedy Presidential Library and Museum, and on behalf of all my library and foundation colleagues, I thank you for coming this evening. I would also like to acknowledge the generous support of our underwriters of the Kennedy Library Forums, lead sponsors Bank of America and the Lowell Institute, and our media sponsors, the Boston Globe, Xfinity, and WBUR. I'm also delighted to welcome all of you who are watching tonight's program online. Chef Mesnier has kindly agreed to sign copies of his new book after tonight's program. Our bookstore will be selling copies of this book and taking orders for Chef Mesnier's holiday book, The White House in Gingerbread, Memories and Recipes, if you are interested. And please watch for a special surprise as you exit the hall after the forum this evening. We thank you in advance for double-checking to silence your cell phones. A White House pastry chef faces challenges unique in the culinary sphere, from everyday desserts to state dinner centerpieces that must be as delicious as they are symbolic. Their work is demanding and ever-changing and must always be executed at the highest level. We are so pleased to have the opportunity to explore this fascinating world in depth this evening. I'm delighted to introduce tonight's speakers. Roland Mesnier was chief pastry chef at the White House from 1979 to 2004. During his 25-year tenure, he served 5 United States presidents and their distinguished guests. He's the author of a number of books, including most recently, Creating the Sweet World of White House Desserts, A Pastry Chef's Secrets. I'm also pleased to introduce our moderator for this evening. Sheryl Julian is the former food editor of the Boston Globe. She styles and photographs recipes, writes about food, teaches food journalism in the Masters in Gastronomy program at Boston University. She trained at the Cordon Bleu schools in London and Paris. Please join me in welcoming our special guests.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you all for coming out on this bleak night. We're going to make you very happy and talk about all things wonderful and sweet. Chef Mesnier, welcome to JFK Library.
Thank you.
You were raised in the village of Bonnet, France, in the north, near the Belgian border. One of 9 children, 7 of 9? 7th?
9.
Of 9. You were number 7?
No, I was number 7, yes.
And when they took the population of Bonnet a decade ago, there were 270 people, and it was undoubtedly many fewer people post-World War II when you were a boy in the 40s.
Yes.
What was it like? What was Bonnet like?
There was
when you were
really
a boy?
Very tiny. It was very country, you know.
Rural.
Rural. We had 2 fantastic parents that ran the house and everything, and the discipline. We had discipline in that house, trust me, and I still thank them today, because to organize 7 boys and 2 girls, trust me, I felt very bad for my sisters, because they were the oldest, but you know what? They had a wonderful life. They're still alive today. They are in their 90, but in my house, we only ate what we grew or what we raised. We had no money to go to the butcher shop. We had no money to go to J.C. Penney to buy clothes. If you see what I mean. We had no running water and no electricity. That means, from some of you here, please listen, no TV, no what you call BlackBerry, Blueberry, Raspberry, whatever, none of those. And my mother turned her first electric switch in her life at age 60 when she retired.
Oh, my.
She had never turned an electric switch before. We had no refrigeration, we have none of that. So life was interesting, to say the least. And the house where we lived would have probably been the size of that stage, maybe, on a good day, when they would expand.
Were you all lined up on the floor in one of the rooms?
We slept in bed, but 3 or 4 people in the same bed. You know, one facing this way, the other one facing this way. So, you know, but I must say something regard to that. And I really say it sincerely to you. Those were great time of my life. If I had to do it again, I would do it just like that. Today, life, for me, has lost a lot of fun. Because we created our own game. We created many things ourselves. You know, with a pile of mud and a stick, we would play all afternoon. Today, you need to go buy a machine that costs $1,000.
So,
yes.
Sorry for interrupting. So you had a brother who had a bakery, and presumably
Yes.
an older brother.
Older.
And you went to work for him, and then your mother arranged an apprenticeship for you.
Yeah,
After that.
but I had one brother who had his own bakery, and the other one who had his own pastry shop. And on my vacation, when vacation came, school vacation, we didn't go to Cancun. We went to work.
So, Chef, explain for the audience the difference between a bakery in France and a pastry shop.
Well, a bakery usually make bread.
And
mainly
nothing
bread.
else.
Or a few little things, but not much else. Pastry shop is when they make a lot of elaborate cakes and things, which is a little bit different. And this is where I really got the taste of doing pastry. When I saw my brother baking a croissant or something of that kind, you know, mixing the flour, the sugar, everything, and then put that in the oven, and then see that rising, and the smell. You know, smell for me is the number one thing that you need to have to attract customer. Here you can walk the street. Do you ever smell anything when you walk the street? Yeah, what you smell is not what you have in mind, you know what I'm saying? But that's the way it is. And this is why we have lost a lot of excitement. I mean, in France, you walk the street for 5 minutes and you start smelling baked goods, pastry, bread, and you start smelling the coffee and the cigarette. Oh, don't forget the cigarette, that's part of life. I don't smoke. I've given up smoking when I was 19 years old. But this is very important.
So your mother arranged an apprenticeship.
Yes.
At a pastry shop.
Yes.
When you were 14. And was this typical that a parent went to a tradesman and set up, you know, all the arrangements and the details for a child?
Yes, in those years, because in those years, school, the regular school, would be finished when you're 14 years old. Unless then you had to go to, a college or something for the people who had the money, who could afford it, but we couldn't do that. So anyway, usually the mother, mainly the mother would go to town, select a nice place, and go talk to the owner and start a contract. Usually it was a 3 years contract. Okay. And you'll be living with those people, eating there and everything.
So did all of your brothers and sisters do this?
Not all of them. The only one the one who was baker and pastry chef, and then myself, you see.
And the others?
The other one learned like to become an electrician
Yes, I mean, did they,
yeah,
they
mechanic,
all
yeah.
took a trade.
They all did trade, yes.
Okay, so part of your arrangement was that you got room and board. You were a few towns away from where you were, a few
Yes,
villages
yes,
away.
yes.
And you earned 300 francs a month.
Oh,
I
no,
read.
no. Oh, 300, no. When we
Okay.
started that,
You earned zero.
was $1 for the
Okay.
month.
Okay,
$1. And then every 6 months they would raise a little bit. But at the end of the 3 years, you may have earned 300 francs towards the end, you know what I'm saying?
okay.
But that was it.
Was it enough money to go to a movie?
Well,
Could you take a girl for a
Take a
coffee?
When the girl knew what you were doing, she was gone.
Okay,
She needed a bus ticket to go home. She said, I met that loser. What do you think I'm going to do with this one here? No. Oh, my goodness. You don't know how poor we were. We were really poor people. And the only thing we did is work. When you had some free time, was work.
well, were you expected to send some money home, no matter what you earned?
Some. And we had 2.5 months during the school vacation. They would send me to a farm to work with a cow.
Before the apprenticeship?
Before, yeah. So we'd be moving manure. You know, before I would go to school in the morning, I would go to a farm and move manure. And you want me to attract a girl?
Okay.
What all the cologne are you wearing today?
So when you went off to do the apprenticeship, what were your responsibilities? You knew how to shovel manure, but what did you know about baking?
About baking, first of all,
Well, you had worked for your brothers.
the first year
Okay.
that you went for your apprenticeship there, they didn't let you touch any pastry. They make you clean the floor, you know, go do the shopping for the pastry shop, you know, get the butter, the lemon, the chocolate you needed to work with. But the first year, the boss needed to trust you. He wanted to see if you act responsible. And if you didn't, that didn't last long. The boss would send you home, and that was
So
the
what
end.
did acting responsibly mean?
If the boss said, tomorrow I want you to start at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, then you show up at 5:30. That's responsible.
Okay.
And if the boss sends you to buy a dozen of apple, well, he's going to check them when you bring them, and if half of them are rotten, that's not being responsible, you see. So that's what they mean by responsible.
So after the first year?
After the first year, then they would let you start to do so, like the little tartlets, fruit tartlets, you were allowed to touch those, and you know, then you move like these. But then when the third year came in, by then the boss either totally trust you, or he had sent you back home to mama.
And in the meantime, is your mother telling you,
Mother
better
and father.
do well?
And they would come to town and check with the owner of the shop, said, how is he doing? Is he nice? Is he respectful? Is he, does he really do some good work? And whatever the boss of the shop will say, that's what your outcome would be. You
Okay,
know.
it's like a report card.
Exactly.
Verbal report card.
Yes.
Okay. So when you were 17, you took an apprenticeship exam.
Yes.
I read.
Yes.
Who administers it? What is that about?
That was organized by the pastry owner and pastry chef of the town. And you would go one day to one of the biggest pastry shops that could accommodate all of us, and you got a piece of paper telling you what you needed to do. Like today you're going to make puff pastry. Make a 5-pound block.
And are they watching you while you're
Oh,
making
oh,
it?
if they watch you, like a hawk.
Okay.
And then they would say after that, then you have to make genoise or cake, buttercream, different thing like this. And then after, at the end of the day, you would line up on a table all the things you needed to make, and then those chefs came to look at it, touch it, taste it, and give you a grade.
Like the Great British Baking Show.
Well, they came after. They copied us. We didn't copy them. But just to tell you, this was serious. Now, when I did that, we were 22 apprentices.
In this little town or all the towns around?
No, not in my little town, in a bigger town.
Yeah, right.
Where I learned and all that. We were 22, and I graduated, guess what?
Number 1, I hope.
Number 2.
Number 2, okay.
Because the number 1 was always the apprentice from that particular place.
Oh, okay.
Well, because
the fix was in.
Well, this guy, no, the guy knew the place very well.
Yes.
When we went that day, we didn't know that pastry shop. We didn't know the oven, the refrigerator. We had to find out about everything.
Okay.
But I graduated number 2, which I was very, very happy with that.
So it goes without saying that all these formulas were in your head.
Well,
They were-
yes,
you didn't have you didn't have a notebook.
Definitely,
Okay.
definitely, yes,
Okay.
yes.
At some point after France, after this apprenticeship, you went to West Germany, or you had a stop in between?
No, after that, I wanted to learn languages. That was in my head, to learn languages, because I knew that people start to travel more and more, and I'm going to be confronted with different language. So I want to learn, and I want to learn different pastry. So I said, where do I go? I didn't know anybody who could coach me, if you will. That didn't exist. People didn't do that those days. You were on your own. So I decided that I was going to go to Germany, because I heard a lot of good report about the German pastry. And the Germans are very organized. And I wanted to learn that, the organization, the everything. And then from there on, I went first to the town of Hanover in the northern Germany, and then after that I went to Hamburg. So I went to 2 different towns in 2 years. Then after that, I had to come home, by the way, to do my military service. Those years, every young man had to go to the military service. Oh, do I miss those days. I wish you would go. I really wish. Because you know what? I learned more in those pastry shops and those places with those masters. I learned more than I would have learned in any university or whatever school you choose. We learn right there working with those people. So you will really knew what we were doing and what we were learning.
So I'm going to fast forward through some of your CV. You were in London at the Savoy Hotel,
yes.
at the Georges V in Paris,
Yes.
at the Princess Bermuda,
Yeah.
where you met your wife Martha,
Yeah.
and then at the homestead in Hot Springs, Virginia.
Yes.
Where I've been there a couple of times. Beautiful place.
I tell you, I always selected where I'm going to be working next. Selection, now I know how to this, what do I need to learn? Let's say, I'm weak in chocolate work. So let me get a job somewhere where the master is the best in chocolate work. That's how I'm going to learn. And it did work for me very, very well. I made, the money I was making was barely sufficient for me to live on. I'll give you a quick little story about Germany. When I came to Germany, I could not speak a word of German. The only thing I had in my pocket was an address of someone in Hanover that spoke French, that I never met before, Somebody in Paris gave me this address. Said, go see this man. He can, maybe, this guy was selling a tractor for McCormick Company. So he was not a pastry guy, obviously. Anyway, when I arrive in Hanover, I have very few coins in my pocket.
That would never happen in your kitchen, that
No.
sound.
No, I would be over there with the rolling pin.
Right.
I would straight him out then.
Yes, okay.
Anyway, let me tell you, that story is very important because today nobody live like that. When I went to those people, there was a young couple. They had 2 young daughters that was like 7 or 8 years old. They never saw me before. They don't know nothing about me. I knock on the door. The young lady come out, the wife, and she spoke French also and said, what do you want? I said, okay, let me introduce myself.
You hadn't written them a letter?
No, nothing.
Okay.
Nothing. I couldn't afford the stamp.
Okay.
So anyway, she said to me, well, what do you want? Well, what I needed is a place to stay. And the husband had joined her by then. And then I want you to help me, please, to find a job. I'm sure you know the best bakery or pastry shop in Hanover. So the guy looked at me and said, you know, I will help you. You seem sincere, you seem nice, I'll help you. You can stay with my family for a couple of weeks until you find some place to stay. That was incredible. Today they will have called the cops on me. It's true, I'm telling you the truth. And tomorrow, Saturday, I still remember like yesterday, I will take you downtown to the best pastry shop of Hanover, which is right across of the Opera. And we're going to go see the chef. We get there, meet the chef. The chef, for some of you who've never met the old German guy, you know their language is not exactly the language of love. And was pounding on the table, and with his rough language, here is what he said. He said, okay, I want you to come back tomorrow morning at 5 o'clock, and I'm going to give you a job to do. If it's not done right, I put you back on a train to France, back to France. That's it. There was never a discussion about money, vacation, no way, no way. So the next day I come, and 5 o'clock in the morning is Sunday. The chef is not there. There's nobody there. I know what he was doing. That was a trick to see if I'm really hungry for the job. You know what I'm saying? He wanted to test me. Because if I had left, he said, good, he's gone, we don't need him. You know, that's it. I stayed there. I sat on the floor, on the cement floor, and the chef arrived at 8 o'clock that morning. Then he took me to that little shop, and he wanted me to coat, to dip chocolate candy in chocolate. Now, I was in luck. I believe God looked over me all the time. Because during my apprenticeship, every year for the holidays, we had to dip those chocolate 1 ton every year, by hand.
So this was your test.
So that was my test. Of course, I won it, you know.
That test, you became the valedictorian.
Yes,
Okay.
and down.
So how did you hear about the pastry chef job in the Carter White House?
Well, that was during
You were at the Hot Springs,
at the
homestead.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
That was during the energy crisis. We had a lot of people from Washington and even from the Pentagon that would be flying with the helicopter to the homestead. They would be landing right on a golf course. And, you know, lunchtime, we made a lot of buffets because we were very busy. So I used to go check the buffet, see how is everything and everything. So I bumped into some secretary from Washington that were connected somewhat with the White House. And one lady approached me one day and said, listen, you do beautiful pastry and I've tasted your stuff. It tastes good. you know, Mrs. Rosalind Carter is looking for a pastry chef. I said, good. Keep looking. You don't want to go? I said, no, I have no desire. I don't want to go to Washington because they are crazy over there. I'm not going. I'm not going. And I was nice when I say half crazy. So anyway, following weeks, the same women come back. She said, have you thought about what I told you? No, I don't want to go to Washington. I'm telling you, I love it here. I did love the homestead. I love this place. And we were still doing things the way it's supposed to be done. So they went back to Washington, and the following week they come back again, and then they bring me this time a stack of paper. Say, this is the employment paper for the White House. Please, will you fill them in? I said, okay, I'll do that. So I said, then I get rid of her after that, for good. So I fill up the paper, I said, here it is. So we were getting close to Christmas. I get a phone call in my house in Hot Spring, Virginia, which is really the end of the world. There's nothing there. And this is Mrs. Carter's secretary. She called me, she said, Roland, listen, I know you've been talking to some of my friends there. Have you ever been to the White House? I said, no, never. Don't you want to come for a tour? I said, yeah, I think I'd like to do that. So, okay, they decide on the date and everything. So I had to drive all the way from Hot Spring to Washington. I was driving a green avocado color Dodge Dart. Remember? The Dodge Dart was not a pretty car, you know, and most time didn't arrive at destination. So I left very early to make sure I be downtown, and I arrived in front of the White House. The guard came to me, said, okay. I said, listen, I have an appointment to see the First Lady. Yeah, okay. He opened the door, he said, go right in. Park your car under the colonnade. You know, the beautiful colonnade? I said, I'll be damned, I start to like this thing. If I get a job like this, I probably will take it, we'll see. And then we toured the White House. During the tour, who should appear? Mrs. Carter. And you know, she was a class act, that lady. First of all, let me tell you, she was very, very pretty lady. In those years, she was young, very, very pretty. And she pulled me aside to a side room with her secretary, and then we talked about different things and so on. And then she said, you don't want to be the pastry chef here? Come on, we would love to have you here. So after a while, I said, okay, I give you 5 years. 5 years, that's good? Yeah, good. But Mrs. Carter's secretary told Mrs. Carter, said, listen, you cannot hire this man. He's not an American citizen. But I was on green card, but it's not the same. She said, you know, there's going to be, the press is going to be on you. A lot of bad stuff will come out. Do not hire this man. And Mrs. Carter said, no, I take care of it. I want him, and I want him bad.
So did she make you a citizen?
Of course.
Oh, very nice. Okay.
Of course.
Okay.
What do you think she meant when she said, I want you bad?
Okay.
She meant citizenship. And the day it happened, I didn't even know it was happening. I was working in the White House kitchen when a dude showed up from nowhere, tapped me on the shoulder. He said, you see the black limousine out there? Get in. I took off my hat. I went into the car, took me downtown in some offices. There's this guy there behind the desk asking me questions about the American government. I said, I don't know what you want, but I don't know nothing. He was getting really upset. Then he said, do you know who the president is? I said, of course, I feed him every day. His name is Jimmy Carter. Good, you passed the test. Get back in the car. Get back in the car. I still don't know what's going on. This guy take me in Alexandria, Virginia, to the courthouse. When I arrive at the courthouse, there's a lady there with a Bible. I looked at her, I said, who died? She said, no joke, no joke. Put your hand on the Bible, repeat after me. Blah, blah, blah. Congratulations, you are an American citizen. I said, my Lord, my Lord, my Lord. God is good, one more time. So I called my wife, I called her, I said, are you having an affair? She said, an affair? What is wrong with you? What are you crazy? Yeah, because I said, I don't know. Last night, you went to bed with a Frenchman, and today you're going to go to bed with an American citizen. I don't know, there's something wrong with this picture. She said, I hope you'll tell me more about that because it's very, very strange. You know?
From all the photos in your books, it looks like the dinners that you were cooking for were typically round tables in a very large room for 10 or 12. And in the pictures that I saw, a butler is holding a platter for people to serve themselves.
Yes.
Was that your style of serving?
Well, that was already in the White House when I got there. That's what they call, I believe, what do they call the service? Not English.
À la française?
No, that's another name. But that's important, not important. But anyway.
À la Russe.
So that service remained with me to the very end at the White House because I was able to convince the First Lady that by doing those beautiful platters, when you come to the dining room with that, it's a show. That if I bring you a little plate with this, what they do today, you know, what is this? What is this? It's a joke. It's a joke.
Well, would there be, like they have in The Crown, are there 2 or 3 butlers per table serving?
There was technically...
So because the number 12 is going to get a mess.
No. Hold on. There was 3 butlers for dinner, per table. The main dessert with one butler. This butler will be carrying in his hand a spoon and a fork. And then he will start going around the table, bring the platter to you. Now, it was resting, he would be resting on the edge of the table. So there's no weight there. So he give you the fork, then you take, I like that because you took whatever you want. And all my dessert, every platter was loaded with fresh fruit. Plus other thing, ice cream, whatever, there's a lot to choose from. So when you get that, you have a choice. When I give you a plate, that's it.
But when you get to the person number 12, after 11 people have served.
Yeah, but no, wait a minute.
Okay.
The number 12 is not taking the last dessert. If there is 12 people at the table, there is enough dessert for 14 or 15 people.
Okay.
Oh, no. You cannot have one person having the last dessert.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's very, and it did work well. And you know, what I like is that it gives you a choice. Because I see how many times I go to a restaurant, they bring me this ridiculous plate, and then what is on the plate, I don't like it. So what am I going to do? Just look at it? This is why I'm against, and I fought at the White House for that. I told the First Lady, why you don't want, I said, because, it's not because the restaurant do it. The White House, first of all, is not a restaurant, is not a hotel, is a private home. Okay? So, guests that come to the White House, they should be serving themselves to what they like, and that's it. And if they don't care for it, then it's too bad, you know, that's it. When you invite it to someone home, what do? Okay?
Okay, so now we're going to dish a little.
Yes.
You know that American expression, dishing?
Oh, yes. Oh, of course, I'm an American.
Okay. You wrote that every president comes into the White House and says he doesn't eat dessert, and that lasts about 2 weeks.
Yes.
So you're there to cook whatever anybody wants.
Yes.
So what were some of the nightly favorites?
Okay. This is when it gets tricky.
Just entre nous.
Entre nous, oh yeah. This is when it gets tricky. you have to develop a system that you find out what the new president, when they come in, and first lady, like and dislike, without going to bother them with it. They have president, first lady, they have other thing to do than find out, so you have to make their life easy for them. So my trick was simple. They're here tonight, they're having dinner tonight, I'm going to make one certain style dessert. Let's say tonight, I'm going to start low on the totem pole, and I may make for them custard, dessert based on custard, creme caramel or something, and then make it pretty. Make it pretty is very important, very, very important. Because, most people, I know me, I eat with my eyes first. And if the platter is not pretty, then forget it, I'm done, okay? So, when I bring the dessert to be served, I remain on the floor to the very end. And I wait until the butler brings back the plate. And I see how much they ate, what they ate, and so on.
I once read that Alice Waters from Chez Panisse in California used to check every plate. And
I would check every plate. How is that?
You would too.
Well, I check the plate when they come back from the dining hall.
Right. That's what I mean.
Of course,
yes, on the
course.
way to the dishwasher.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And that's how I knew. And then I knew if they didn't eat very much, then I said, okay, that we have to not do that again, not in that style, go somewhere else, until you really knew what to give them.
So what were some of the favorites?
Well, it depends with every president.
Okay, name one and name a favorite.
If you go with President Carter, Mrs. Carter, they love the classical European dessert, like a millefeuille, a Napoleon.
Just on a Tuesday night, they'll have a millefeuille?
Oh, but of course.
Okay. Well, I guess if
the
you've got a pastry
don't have to be that big now.
Okay.
You give small portion.
Okay.
Small portion at the White House is a must. Because you feed them every single day, lunch and dinner. So we had an executive chef at the White House. He didn't stay there very long. He used to cook steak for the president and first lady. That would be about like that. So one day I went to him, I said, sir, are you trying to kill the president or you try to feed him? What do you mean? What do you mean? Oh, you pastry chef, you think you know everything. I said, slow down, Bobby. I'm already here 15 years. And I think they're quite happy with what I give them. So maybe you want to listen a little bit? Because I think the way you're going now, you're not going to be here very long. And that chef was there maybe 6 weeks. My prediction was correct.
Okay, so you've written that Mrs. Reagan was your most demanding boss.
Yes.
But you liked that.
See, I'm going to correct you. Please forgive me. She was not demanding. Mrs. Reagan knew. She had experience on what was good. And her experience, because she, remember, ran the governor's mansion in California, she had already quite a lot of experience with it. And her husband, and they traveled all around the world, stay in the best of hotel and so on and so on. So Mrs. Reagan, the idea of a dessert for her was maybe a dessert that would be that tall, that round. I will say 3 bites. And that dessert better be the prettiest thing she has ever seen. The color had to be perfect. The flavor had to be perfect. The consistency of the dessert. If you, let's say, made a custard like this, small, and then she take her spoon, and the damn spoon is bouncing back. She said, take that out of here. I don't want that, okay? Don't give me that again. So, this is because she had, all her friends were rich people. She was invited to those homes. So she saw and tasted a lot of good dessert. And she told me at the beginning, the dessert has to be certain way, blah, 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 like I told you earlier. And the taste was so important, so important. But small. So she would, listen, I gave dessert to Mrs. Reagan for 8 years. And she had dessert every meal. As a matter of fact, some meal, she would tell the butler not to give her a main course, but just to give her a dessert. Now, for some of you who have seen Mrs. Reagan when she came and when she went home, I believe she lost some weight in between.
That's what eating dessert for dinner will do. Okay, I'm going to give you some events, and then I want you to tell me the story behind it.
Okay.
1980, Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin came to the White House, and the kitchen had to be certified kosher by
Yes.
a rabbi before you began cooking.
Yes.
So you couldn't mix milk or meat. You decided for dessert to make an orange sorbet
Yes.
cake, which, of course, without dairy. But the rabbi couldn't clean the ice cream machine.
No. No, let me tell you correctly what
Okay.
happened. The rabbi, his name was Rabbi Caviar. I remember the man like yesterday. He was on my back all evening long, make sure I don't use something wrong. The only thing with the sorbet had to be frozen in a machine that never had dairy before.
I see, okay.
Okay, now, I find out, because that is going to be difficult to find, I find out that a chef in town just received a brand new sophisticated machine from France.
Wasn't that Jean-Louis?
Yes. Now, my friend Jean-Louis, which is no longer my friend, by the way, well, I'll tell you what he did, and you tell me if that was honest. Because Jean-Louis had his reputation. You may not be aware of it, but I am. I called him. I said, can I come and freeze my sorbet in your machine? Oh, yeah, sure.
With Rabbi Caviar?
No,
accompanying
the
you?
rabbi, I told the rabbi, I said, this machine never had any dairy. He said, okay, fine. So I went to the Watergate, froze my sorbet, coming back, put the cake together and everything. Now, the next day in the Washington Post, Jean-Louis Paladin made the dessert he made the kosher dessert, okay? I was non-existent. Do you think I carry him in my heart, honestly?
Okay.
Okay? Well, I know a lot of people love him. If you love him, I don't care. That's your problem who you love. But I'm telling you one thing, he's a very dishonest man. I could tell you all the story that he did.
Okay.
That
we won't hear them
No,
tonight.
I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go.
Afterwards with a glass of wine.
Yeah.
1985, Prince Charles and Lady Diana visited Mr. and Mrs. Reagan.
Yes.
President and Mrs. Reagan, and she loved peaches, which you were going to incorporate into the
Yes.
dessert, but you had to have an element from the prince as well.
Yes.
Okay, what did you do?
That was the plume, the tree plume, which is the coat of arms of Prince Charles.
Okay.
And that needed to be done with sugar. And for a whole week, every night with the dessert, I put some goddamn plume on top. I mean, that was really getting crazy, because they gave me some picture of the plume and this and that. So Mrs. Reagan was laughing at the plume that I made because they were ugly, But I continued, I didn't give up. I said, well, this is when I came up with the idea of make my own mold. That's why the book that we have now, there is the picture of me in a carpenter shop carving a piece of wood, 2 pieces, so I can make my plume.
And they were made out of?
Sugar. Those pieces of wood, I would put a piece of saran wrap on top, put my warm sugar on top of it, take the next piece of carved wood with a piece of film and on top of the other, and press as hard as I could so that it will have the shape of the plume. And
Very
then they
clever.
would be band a certain way and glued to, and those, she loved those plumes. As a matter of fact, I read that many, many times after that when Prince Charles came to the White House. Yes.
Okay, 1991. You decided in the middle of winter for a state dinner for Queen Margrethe II and Prince
souffle.
Henrik of Denmark in the Bush White House to make a hot raspberry souffle.
Yeah.
What did you do?
Well, that was the day that I thought I will not be at the White House very long. Things were not going my way. Mind you, not my fault, I will tell you. Raspberry souffle, I have a recipe for raspberry souffle that is, I find it exquisite because that dessert could pass for a diet dessert. My souffle has no flour in it, no butter in it, it is simply made with egg white, and fresh raspberry puree, and a little bit of sugar, very low sugar. That's it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is more than a diet here, okay? That's hospital food. So anyway, and we needed to do, I needed to have 25 souffle made.
And large ones.
Or large one. They were that size. They're more tricky than the little one. So anyway, I made several souffle, tested, retested the recipe, check it again, redo it. And I came to a recipe that works fabulous. Souffle came up nice, and it would not fall, it stayed there and everything. And the taste, when you ate that souffle, what you tasted, the fresh raspberry in your mouth. That was it, okay? So here come time for the dinner, dessert. I knew what time to start, the recipe, everything. That's a lot of egg white to whip. I think we were whipping 90 egg white at the time, and several times because you needed to fill 25 of those pans. And so I start to whip the egg white, and the egg white don't do nothing. They don't even become foamy. I say, what is going on here? Threw everything away, we start cracking eggs, I had some people from the kitchen helping me. We start again, whip the egg white. Now remember, there is a queen coming for dinner, okay? I don't have to, you understand what I'm talking about, right? So, this is no Mickey D menu here. So, we do it again, same scenario. Egg white don't come up. I was sweating bullets, I swear. My heart was totally wet. I say, what's going on? Now, after the second try, I overheard the executive chef and the assistant chef talking about the mayonnaise that they made that morning in a machine. Now my first thought said, do I go kick their asses now or later? I mean, honestly, you know, they could have told me, warned me, because I wasn't there when they did that, so I did not know about that. They could have said, Roland, be careful, we made, make sure. That's all what I needed. So we wash the machine, everything, we start. Now at this time, I have lost a lot of time. I'm going to be late. And at the White House, you cannot be late. When it's time to go serve the dessert or the main course, the only word the butler wants to hear is pick up, pick up. Don't tell them any excuses. So this is where I will come to something, experience. So that's why when I see a young guy this day, they're 19 years old, and they call themselves executive chef, I said, yeah, you go tell your story to somebody else. Because you have zero experience at 19. Zero experience. At 25, you still have zero experience. At 30, you're still an idiot. All right? So, now, I'm telling you, if I didn't have the experience I had, how I was going to make up some time by turning every stove on high heat and starting the souffle right on a gas stove, not on a pan or anything, right there to give them a boost to get them up. And you know what? To make a long story short, when the butler came to that kitchen that evening, pick up, ready to go. There it is. You know? And that is all due to the experience that you have. And I'm so proud of that because we made it happen. Nobody even knew the problem we were having. And I had nothing to do with it. Just because those stupid chefs had no decency whatsoever and no professionalism. Because they could have told me nicely that they used the machine to make mayonnaise. So just for you who are going to go into the food business, remember that story, okay? Because that can happen to you. It happened to me.
Okay. Now, you have a new book on gingerbread.
Yes?
And which began in 1969 for First Lady Patricia Nixon. Mm-hmm. Explain your process of building a gingerbread in the White House.
Okay.
When the week that you started and where you were working.
Yes. Well, you know, first of all, Christmas at the White House is a big deal. You use so much stuff and everything. But then the gingerbread, okay, now, the gingerbread house at the White House was not started by me, was started by a German chef. His name was Hans Raffen. Very good chef. But he's the one, because gingerbread really came from Germany, okay, or Austria, or those countries. They do a good job on that. They know what they're doing. The chef that did that at the White House, he made the same style house every year. A frame, boom, boom, a front and a back. And then he used to go to a German store and bought some German cookies and stick them on the house. It was pretty, nothing wrong with the house, but it was the same thing every year. So anyway, when he retired, they came to me, said, we want you to take over the gingerbread. I said, okay, I'll do what I can. And the first year I did a gingerbread village, which was different from the A-frame house. So when you're going to do a gingerbread, to come back to your question, you need to have a plan, first of all. What kind of a house you're going to make, okay? What you're going to put around the house. What is going to be the theme that you're using. I decided to have a theme that is very close to the first family. Something that they love, something that is in their life. And I decided that I was going to do every year a house that meant something to the presidential family. So, when I started that after the village, when I started that, the first year I made the house where Bill Clinton was born. When he saw that house, I told you earlier, I told some people about people having a tears in their eyes. President Clinton had more than one tear coming down his cheek when he recognized the house where he grew up in Arkansas. The next house, that was the house where Mrs. Clinton grew up. Now Chelsea, because they never had a home, I had to figure out something else. So for Chelsea, I used the Nutcracker theme by doing a house that don't mean anything to anybody, it's just a house, but then decorated with the Nutcracker and a scene of the Nutcracker.
Because wasn't she a dancer? But didn't she dance in the Nutcracker?
Exactly.
Yes. Okay.
And we made the dancer out of sugar. And one of the lady dancers looked just like Chelsea. I have the picture to prove. I'm not just running my mouth here. Okay? This is the truth. This is the fact. You're going to look and say, oh my goodness, this is Chelsea. Yes, it's Chelsea. So every year that I made, I believe, 17 gingerbread house. But every year there was a meaning behind each houses and a theme.
But then you would spread, wouldn't you start like at the beginning of November, before Thanksgiving?
The house, yes, we started very early. And then we keep enlarging, you know, to put the other thing around and so on. And so that became a big.
And you made it actually in the White House rather than in the kitchen. Didn't they give you a room
Yes,
to make it in?
we use a room where they display china and stuff. We covered the floor and everything, and then so we wouldn't dirty anything too much. And yeah, that's where we did it. And then, now the problem is, how do you transport that house to the main dining room in the White House? So we had to use a truck. We had to use a truck to load the house on that, drive on the street, come back in the front, and bring the house in the White House. So that was quite an ordeal, let me tell you. That was quite a job. But we really wanted to do. Now, one year, a theme that we did, which I was very happy with, we did the White House. Beautiful. This came out really great. But then, you know, the Clinton had a cat named Socks. Remember Sock? Black and white cat. And I love cats. I miss my kitty. I should have brought here one with me tonight. They're so sweet. They're so sweet. And so we were doing the big White House, and we made out of marzipan 25 miniature cats, and we placed them everywhere. On the roof, into the trees, everywhere there was so we called it the House of Socks, not the White House. And that was so. Now I have a picture that is in my book, the Christmas book, of the real socks did jump on the table, and is proceeding of licking the icing of the House of Socks. And that picture is so beautiful, so beautiful. And I was happy for him, you know. I said, if you want, baby, I'll make you a big batch of icing. But don't fall in it, because we may never find you again.
And finally, Chef, I was always told that a cuisine chef can't make patisserie, but a pastry chef can cook anything savory well.
Yes.
Is that true?
Yes, it is partially true. It depends
Okay.
on the person.
Right.
You know, it's not always the case, but because it's very simple. The pastry chef, like myself or many other, we learn how to decorate. Cooks, they just schlap around, you know what I'm saying? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend anybody, but it's partially true. So the presentation is so-so, you know what I'm saying? So, but if you've been a pastry chef before, you can use some of the technique that you use with sweet and transfer it into the cooking thing. There's many chefs that are in Washington still that have stolen, I can say stolen for me, so many technique, and they're still using today. Though they will never admit it, they will never say, "No, thank you. You know that's from you." No, they're not going to admit that. But that's fine. That's okay. I don't need that. You see.
Okay, so now we're going to take audience questions, and I think there are microphones that you can come up to the microphone and ask the chef anything you'd like. We'll start over here, sir.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, how are you?
My name's Bob. I'm from Boston here. I have a question that might seem a little, I don't know, strange, but did you have to learn if people were allergic to things and make sure that they didn't get that particular thing they were allergic to? or if they were diabetics, or
That's a
anything
good
like
question. That's a good question. But let me tell you, I didn't have to learn anything because they told you, they yelled at you. Remember, I'm allergic. Who is not allergic today? Do you know? Anywhere, I've never seen anything like it. Everybody is allergic. You know, I've never taken anything about allergy. I don't have any allergy. And if I may have some, I don't care. I continue to go. But everybody is allergic. I said, is there one normal person left? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, you know, as I said, I told you about my house where I grew up. No electricity, no running water. We had no money to buy anything. What my mother called, she cooked it, and that was it. You eat or you don't. But every day today, you have to listen about. So many times, allergic, you know, I don't even pay attention, to be honest. If they tell me they're allergic to butter, I put more butter in the damn rest.
Over here, yes, please. Yes.
When you're in the White House and you have different chefs that have their
Over here.
own little domain of
Oh, yeah.
In the middle.
what they're doing, how do you all work together so that you're cooperating?
Well, working together is a big problem, especially chefs and pastry chefs don't go along together very well. You know, like as we say in the kitchen, you don't mix the dirty towel with the serviette. You know what I'm saying? So you know which one is which. So anyway, I was in my first 7 years in the White House, I worked in the kitchen with the cooks. I didn't have a pastry shop. I'm the one who created the first pastry shop at the White House. I don't know if you know that. Nobody will tell you that.
Chef, you should explain that in big kitchens,
Yes.
pastry is separate from savory.
Yeah, most of the time you have a different room, different thing, because you work with different product and everything. So after 7 years during the cooks, I wanted to work with chocolate, and suddenly the chef said, I got to brown my lamb chop here. Boom, boom, there goes the gas. Good luck with the chocolate, okay? I mean, that don't work together. But anyway, I made it happen. And after 7 years, I went to my boss at the White House, and I said, here, I have a request to make. If I cannot have my own bake shop, pastry shop, I will leave. You do whatever you want. I already have a job waiting for me. I will leave. And my boss looked at me and said, yes, you will have it. And then he came to me and asked me to look for a space into the White House where the pastry shop is today. But I am the one who designed the pastry shop. I bought the equipment for that. And all the equipment was bought. We had to take a window out of the White House facing Pennsylvania Avenue. And with a crane, you see the refrigerator, everything going up through that window. That's how, and I have the picture to prove, again, because people today, they don't always believe you. So, but just to say yes.
Over here?
Hello, Chef. I'm Ray. I wanted to thank you, first of all, for sharing both in your book and here today of yourself. I'm guessing that just as we look with our eyes, eat with our eyes first and then taste, that part of what got you hired out of the White House is your colorful personality that you shared with us today.
Oh, I don't know about that.
But my question is actually, I wanted to continue the raspberry souffle story.
Yes.
Had you not figured out how to get those eggs to rise, what the issue was, do you have a go-to dessert that you would have done instead?
With that particular dessert, there is no faking anything. Either you can make it or you don't. Now, I knew where the problem was after I discovered that they had make mayonnaise in the machine. Now, it was up to me to recollect in my head other situations that I had in the past. That's why I brought to everyone tonight the experience. And I said, oh yeah, when I was there, we had that. I saw the chef doing this, I saw that. That's how I was able to catch up. But in a case like, you know, because I could already see me having to go to, I think Barbara Bush was at the White House then, and tell her, Mrs. Bush, there's going to be no dessert tonight. I don't know what would have happened. But I tell you what, I know I was so afraid. I was so, my heart was broken. I really didn't know, except I tried every tricks that I'd learned during my career, and that saved the day, you know. And that soufflé was very, very good, you know. I mean, really. And you talk about a dessert, people who look for a dessert low calories. Dessert that has no egg yolks, no butter, just egg white, a little sugar, and raspberry puree. You go find a dessert like this. I have several desserts like that that I save for special occasion. Like I save that for when I have a kosher dinner. Because for a kosher dinner will be totally okay. Okay? But I can't whip the egg white where I did whipped cream before. So I need to buy a new machine, you know.
Thank you, Chef.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Over here.
Good evening, Chef. Thank
Good.
you for joining us tonight. I had heard an anecdote or two that during some difficult years of the Clinton presidency that, for instance, Mrs. Clinton may have ordered some more chocolatey
I know where you're going. I got your number, man. No, but you are right. You are correct.
I'm very curious how maybe historical events or things like that might have been tied to what your diners may have been ordering. You know, what
Yes.
the guests at the White House were looking for.
Well, the guests at the White House do not order anything. The guests, I was told at the beginning, and I remind them that what the First Lady decides to serve, that's what you're going to eat. You know, don't go say, oh, I would have loved a cheesecake tonight, but no. The First Lady has other plan, and that's what's going to be. But what you're referring to now is actually a very funny story. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I need to tell you that the stuff I put out there, it's all true, okay? I don't make up story. I don't take story from magazine. I don't take story from books. Everything I put out there, I lived it or I was part of it. Because so many chefs have wrote books that you can't even, it's not even worth the paper is reading it, reading on. So just to tell you, and that's the fact. I am factual, I am not politically correct, but damn it, whatever I put out there, you can check it and recheck it, and you will not find, I mean, I've been doing that now for a long time. I have yet to have a person, because I say to people, if I say something wrong, please confront me. You're going to do me a favor. I really want that. I like that. You know, make my blood boil, you know. Good for you. Anyway, the story you talk about. President Clinton is a nice man. I like him. Sometimes. And he has what you call diet problem. What you call
Weight problem.
not weight problem. So he can't eat certain things. Allergy. Thank you. Thank you. You should get a job here, man. You know, I created a cake for him, and that cake is excellent. It's in Dessert University, my first book. It's called low-calorie strawberry cake. And it's total specification of the thing that President Clinton can eat. So I made a 12-inch cake. You talk about a cake. I mean, this cake is strawberry all the way, okay? And the butler, I have to tell you, the butler who served the cake, his name was Sam, good friend of mine, and I have to say that all the butlers at the White House are gentlemen of color. I say that because it's relevant to the story. So I gave him the cake. I said, that's the cake for the family. Sometimes the family eat together, sometimes no. So he went and served the cake, and President Clinton ate half of the cake by himself. 12-inch cake, ladies and gentlemen. He doesn't fool around when he's at the table. Anyway, the next day I do another dessert, maybe a pie or something. And I did not know that story because the butler told me later. So I saw the butler. I said, Sam, tonight there is a pie for the family. Oh, okay. He said, you know, we had a problem last night with the strawberry cake. He said the president ate all this cake there. And so when I served him that pie, he said, no, I don't want the pie. I want you to find the leftover strawberry cake from last night. Yes, sir. So he said, Roland, I went and looked everywhere in the White House. Because normally, whatever food left over has to be safe for security reasons. That is the going rate. If something happens, they need to have part of the food so they can analyze.
Evidence, for evidence.
Yes, for evidence. Mm-hmm. So I came back and I said, Mr. President, I'm sorry, but I can't find your cake. What? He said, Roland, you should have seen the president. He pounding on the table. I want my goddamn cake. I want you to find my goddamn cake. Please get me my cake. He said, I can't, Mr. President. It's gone. That's impossible. That's impossible. He said, I'm paying for that damn cake and I can't even eat it. So the butler said, Roland, I got so scared, I turned white. That's true story, okay? I turned white. He scared me so much. So anyway, we launched an investigation. And we came up with the conclusion, we did that much better than they do on Capitol Hill. I mean, it didn't take us that long. And anyway, after analyzing everything, we decided that Al Gore was the guy who took the cake. But we can't prove it, so don't say anything, okay? We can't prove it. But anyway, the president, you know, this time was eating alone. There was a while he ate alone a lot. Even the dog would eat with him. So I'm sure you can remember which time it was.
Okay. Yes, do you have a question?
Yes,
Okay.
Chef, thank you so much for this glimpse into your world. Do you have a favorite story, with all the presidents and all the first ladies, do you have a favorite story we might not have thought to ask about?
A favorite story? On what? I mean...
Something about their life or their food preferences, you know, in all the years with all the presidents and first ladies. Any secret stories we didn't?
Well, you know, yes, of course, there's many stories, but it has to be the right story, you know what I'm saying? And you know, the story that I use a lot is how the press mistreat the president and first lady sometimes. And this one happened with George W. Bush when he was president. You know, the Pope came to Washington, D.C. And you know, the Pope wear his hat like this. Am I right or am I right? Anyway, President Bush took him on the Potomac in his boat, and they went on the bridge, and the hat got knocked off into the water. So the Pope said, oh, that's okay, I'll go get my hat. No, Monsignor, I will go get your hat. The president said, I will be right back. So President Bush walked on water to go get the hat, and the headline the next day, President Bush can't swim. So that was one, but there's many. You see, I have great stories, but I have to be careful where I'm going with that, you know, because some of them are not, they're not totally kosher, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, R-rated.
R-rated, nothing that you haven't heard. But,
Okay.
but you know.
Okay, is there a question here?
Yes, please. Chef, so I've got a few-part question, answer whatever parts you feel like. So first, I was wondering, from a security perspective, are ingredients inspected when they first arrive at the White House? And now do you think that a couple security agents go to McDonald's and watch the preparation of a hamburger for the current occupant of the White House? Secondly, I was wondering, do you allow people to stage in the White House? And also, do you have any particular tests that you run potential cooks or sous chefs through? And lastly, I was curious if you research in your years in the White House any of the favorite dishes of past presidents to bring to special dinners.
Yes, that I do. I go way back in history to see what they ate those days, how they fix it and all that. It's always helpful to know. But now the most interesting part of that question here is the security thing. How can you bring food into the White House without having any incident? And I think the White House has the best security system. Very simple. And I can even tell you without having to kill you. So this is something, Please. But the security system is very simple. If you work for me, let's say, at the White House, and I give you $5 and I said, I want you to go to the store and buy me 10 bananas. But I want you to, A, don't talk about the White House to anybody, and B, if you use a credit card, it has to be from somebody who has never been in the White House. Or, better yet, use cash. That was our security system. And it works well because you go to Safeway or Giant, you pick something on the shelf, you come to the cashier. Of course, if you go with my jacket here, they're going to find that strange. But you don't do that. If you go simple with your everyday clothes and pick something up and pay for it, this is very secure. Nobody has any idea where the food is going. Am I right? Mm-hmm. So this is, I find, the best system we had, Anything else? Anybody else?
Behind you.
Yeah, this is being broadcast live, and hopefully will be seen by many young chefs. What do you tell people who aspire to be a pastry chef and maybe someday get to the White House or other very important places to go?
One thing I love to do is to talk to aspiring young chefs. I used to love to talk to them because they listen what you said. Today, not so much. Today, they want to tell you what to do, and they never worked in a kitchen before. So with a guy like me that don't fly, something is going to happen, You understand what I'm talking about here? Especially today, young chef, and you probably have heard it. I'm sure you watch TV, some cooking show and stuff. When you ask those young guys, who is your mentor? Oh, I don't have a mentor. I'm self-taught. You self-taught, huh? I'll be damned. Did you came out of the womb with a whisk in your hand? Is that what you mean? Nobody taught you anything? A guy who talked to me like this is done, he's finished. Don't even come in my kitchen, all right? Because this is the younger generation. The attitude has gone from bad to worse. Everybody wants to be a star. They watch the Food Network. Oh yeah, I want to be a star. Now let me remind those young people that somebody needs to clean the floor at the Food Network. Somebody needs to do that too. Probably them is going to be one day. But you cannot make sense of what's going on today. And I get very frustrated. Now, if I find a person that really show me that is dedicated to the profession and makes sense, I will give that young person anything for that person to become really good in what he does. But when a guy tells me he's self-taught and he never worked anywhere else, I said, you know what? I don't have time to waste for you. You're too smart for me. Too smart for me.
So when someone comes into the White House kitchen who you're thinking of hiring, what is the test that you give them?
No test. No test. I just talk to them a little bit. I want to know where they come from, with whom they worked before, who were their boss, their chef. And, you know, if he comes from a place that has great reputation, and
Right.
I know that person spent sometimes, I don't mean by sometimes 2 weeks, I mean like more like maybe a year or so, then I said, well, this person must be trustworthy, okay? I will give it a chance. But, you know, when I was pastry chef at the White House, I was very, very tough with the staff, very tough. And I was lucky because most of my staff was part-time, meaning if I want to fire them, boom, on the spot. I didn't have to do anything. And I fire a lot of them, let me tell you. Never come back to the White House. And, you know, one thing I couldn't stand is those people who came to work. If I said to you, I want you to work tomorrow at 8 o'clock for me. I mean 8 o'clock, I want you working in a kitchen. I don't want you to roll in with a Coke in your hand or a cup of coffee. Because if you do, you're going to be sent home. If I give you a time, this is when you start baking. And the same when I said the day end at such time, don't leave before that. And I was very, very tough on those people, very, very tough. Like I didn't want anybody to bring anything on the work table that can be spilled somewhere, like a glass of water or Coke or whatever. You want to drink water, that's why you have a break. This worked out in your schedule. So during your break, I don't care what you do. You can drink a case of Coke if you want. I couldn't care less. But I don't want to have to throw stuff away because of you being really not thinking. And that we don't. So you have to really put in those people some good thought here, you know. This is a job. This is not the Food Network where they amuse themselves and put PVC pipe into cakes. You know that.
So you had an assistant who stayed with you a lot of the time that you were there, 10 years or so, or longer?
I had one assistant that stayed, and then now the one who is now pastry chef at the White House, I brought her, this young lady came from Ohio in 1993, and she's now the pastry chef at the White House. And she's very, very good.
And the first woman pastry chef.
First women pastry chef. That's their job.
Yes.
And I worked very hard at that because she was very deserving. She, and I talked to her about that before, way before I left the White House. I said, are you okay taking the job? I gave her a recommendation, everything. And then when I gave my notice to Mrs. Bush, first thing she asked me, she said, do you have somebody to take over? I said, well, you know Mrs. Bush, you know Susie, she's very good, and she's okay to take the job. Yeah, she said, she's very good. We are fine. We're going to give her the job. Now the problem, when we arrive a few weeks before me leaving, Susie come to me, she said, you know, Roland, I just can't do that job. I don't know what it takes. I can't do it. I said, come on. We talked. You said yes. No, but I can't do it. So we started looking for other guys, and whoever came in between who wanted to have my job, that was a total disaster. We had people that came, and if you had seen, we had a guy that came fixing dessert for the president. You know what he made? Popcorn. Popcorn, ladies and gentlemen. Outrage, outrage. So needless to say, he never got the job. Now the other guy who came behind, I was supposed to get for them all the best ingredient they wanted. So this guy called me. He said, "Chef, for my testing I'm going to have for the president in a couple of days, I want the best peaches you can find. Beautiful peaches." I said, "No problem. Get them for you. How much you want?" "Oh, a whole case." Get him his peaches. And the day they came for the testing, I was not allowed to be there. I could not be in the same room. So this guy come in. I didn't know what he was going to do, but I know what I would have done with beautiful peaches. So the next day when I come to work, I said, "What did he do?" "Oh, he made a peach pie." I said, "And for that he needed beautiful peaches?" And then, when he was finished with the peaches, because they were nice and ripe, ready to use, he shoved them under the table and left them there for the night, for the entire weekend, as a matter of fact. So those peaches were rotten when I came back on Monday. I said, "That's the guy who wants my job?" I said, no. So we sent him the road, and then Susie, my lady's assistant there, she came back to her senses. She said, "After seeing that, I think I can do the job." I said, "For God's sake, I know you can do the job. You can do the job even asleep compared to those turkey." Yeah.
Finally, tell us the story of the last day at the White House in the pastry kitchen when you left and there was no one around.
Yeah.
You were
Yeah.
feeling, I think, a little forlorn.
Yes, 26 years in that place. And I love that place. I believe the White House was a job made for me. I had so much fun doing all this creation and thing. For me, that was most of the time was not even work, was really doing what I love to do. I'm a chef that loves to bake, to cook. Now, today's chef, if you want to find them, you go to the airport, waiting for the plane for Las Vegas. That's where they are. They're not in the kitchen. We had a chef come into the White House, he couldn't find the stove. I'm not kidding you, ladies and gentlemen. So anyway, my last day was very difficult to leave. But I said, I will leave this job the same way that I found it when I came in. First of all, I cleaned up the kitchen totally. Did all the pots and pans after 26 years. I put everything away, and then nobody was to be seen in the White House. I couldn't see anybody. My assistant, they all had disappeared. So when I went, the pastry shop is up, I went down to go out, to go home. Then suddenly, here comes all my people out to say goodbye. And they were waving their whisk, their pin, and to say goodbye. I was very upset for them I didn't want them to do anything like this. I don't like things like this. Not for me. Some people do, but I don't like that. But that was,
But
that's what they wanted to do.
you loved it.
Well, of course, because they were that was the people that I spent many hours and through many different difficult moments at the White House. Mm-hmm. And I'm still friendly with all of them. I still see them time to time. I don't go to the White House very much anymore. I used to. But I want to remember the White House the way I left it.
Good.
And that's
Thank you.
a good feeling.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Yes.